What is up, guys? J'espère que vous allez bien, que vous êtes en pleine forme. Bienvenue sur le podcast Conversation Awesome avec qu'ils. A place where we speak Franglish, say the word awesome a lot, mais surtout un endroit d'inspiration et d'éducation pour vous aider à optimiser votre santé globale from the inside out. Mon nom est Claudia, fondatrice de qu'ils, et ma mission avec ce podcast est de t'amener dans un monde de développement personnel, d'optimisation d'habitudes de vie et de découverte so you can unleash your potential and live the life you truly want and deserve. Merci d'être à l'écoute. You're awesome. All right, welcome back to the show. Bonjour tout le monde, j'espère que vous allez bien, que vous êtes en pleine forme. Welcome if this is your first time. Aujourd'hui, on a un invité spécial pour la conversation awesome de la semaine. J'ai l'honneur de recevoir mon online trainer friend, Strong Jon. Donc, Jon et moi, on s'est rencontrés dans le cadre d'un mentorship avec Joe et Sarah, mes deux coachs de qui je vous parle souvent. Il y a de ça déjà environ 3-4 ans. Le temps passe tellement vite. Puis, effectivement, Jon lui aussi fait du online training. Il se spécialise au niveau de l'amélioration des habitudes de vie, un peu comme moi aussi. Nutrition, entraînement, saines habitudes en lien avec la gestion de stress, le sommeil et toutes les choses awesome qui font de nous des êtres humains en santé. Il se spécialise surtout avec les parents. Lui, il est papa de 2 jeunes enfants. Donc, on va jaser aujourd'hui beaucoup de certains trucs que les parents peuvent vraiment bénéficier d'utiliser dans leur quotidien, des changements de mindset aussi. Et, as always, ça va être une conversation qui va vous inspirer, mais vous donner aussi des trucs pratico-pratiques à appliquer dès maintenant pour améliorer vos habitudes de santé. So the conversation will be in English, and please let us know, guys, after you've listened to this episode, if you have any questions, what were your feedback, and what is one thing that you'll be doing today to improve your health habits. Bonne écoute! All right, we have my friend Strong Jon in the house. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for being here. Welcome to this awesome conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm really excited to get into this.
Yeah. I love having fellow coaches, health professionals, trainers on the podcast because it's always interesting for listeners to hear different point of views, different approaches, different philosophies, and then just getting other ways to understand some tips and tricks so that they can implement or be inspired for their health. So I'm excited to dive into that with you today.
100%. No, it's going to be good. I tell other coaches that all the time, like a lot of the information that we all say is roughly the same, but how we present it, how we think about it is always different, right? There's always that unique spin on things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I'm happy because I don't have kids and you have kids and you help parents. I help a lot of moms. So there's definitely that, that different way of truly understanding someone who's a parent. And what I mean by that is it's just easy for me to say, oh, you can, spend an hour doing a workout and meditating and like all the things because I have time, right? Because I don't have kids. So there's some stuff that I can understand with my clients, but because I don't live it myself, not being a parent, there's obviously that deeper level there of like understanding and relate to like fellow parents. So I'm excited to have you so we can chat about that and really help the moms that are listening, navigating health, challenges, weight loss journeys, just optimizing their habits, but like keeping in mind and like the fact that, kids take time and,
a lot of energy.
Yeah. A lot of energy. Exactly. So you help parents lose fat, get off the roller coaster, so they can just perform at their best every day, have more time with their kids, more energy. And I'd love to hear your story, like how you got into coaching, helping parents and all that. If you can share a bit about that.
Yeah. So my story starts way back as like an adolescent. So my background is Greek for anyone who sees my last name and is, still unaware. So we're very heavy in food as a family. Everything revolves around food all the time. So, I grew up playing hockey, love the sport, haven't played in 2 years thanks to COVID, but that's besides the point. Either way, I gained a lot of weight as a teenager, a lot of weight. And it was very uncomfortable. In high school, I was very shy. I was very self-conscious. I never really felt like I could be like my true self and be outgoing. So through high school, like my parents got a couple of different trainers for me over the years, which I love them to death. They're all super helpful, helping me kind of get started on my own journey, as I grew up into adulthood. And then, I was still navigating things in my early 20s, still kind of figuring out nutrition and training and honestly really learning the mistakes the hard way by going through them, whether it's cutting out carbs, whether it was doing hours of cardio, whether it was just pushing to absolute failure all the time in the gym. It was, it was good lessons learned, and I'm glad I did it in a way because now I can pass this on. Mm-hmm. But basically, as I went through my own kind of transformation, I helped my brother went through his, a couple other buddies go through theirs. We were kind of like this group of guys. We worked together and we trained together. And then at our workplace, we became kind of like the fitness crew, and especially for me, people used to ask me all the time, like, what should I eat? How should I train? Should I do this? And, I was the guy who at times would bring in his dinner, and this was to a catering company who supplied food, and people look at me like I was weird.
Right.
I was like, you know what? Well, I have goals, right? I need to hit a certain amount of protein. I have calories to hit. And a lot of it was taken by confusion. People were like, what are you talking about? Like, don't you just eat clean? And I was like, well, I tried that once, and then it didn't work. It works until it doesn't. And then, there'd be occasions where, because it's a catering company, there'd be pizza, there'd be cookies, there'd be chicken wings, hot dogs, and all of the fun stuff. And then these same people would see me eating that, and they'd be like, well, I thought you were trying to lose fat. I'm like, I am. But it fits within my calories for the day. Right. So it was very eye-opening for a lot of people. And I honestly loved explaining how that worked. And that kind of kickstarted me because I never really knew what I wanted to do with my life other than just play hockey, which as a kid from Ontario, it's nearly impossible to make it long-term in that. And that's fine. But yeah, so once I got my personal trainer certification, I was like, I'll work in person for a while, but I really do want to run my own business. I knew in-person training, you're trading time for money. It's long hours. Yeah. And it was kind of like this whirlwind event where I feel like it happens a lot with my family, where in 2016, I got my personal trainer job. I was still in school. I was working at the catering company, and we got pregnant with our firstborn. So it was a lot of things happening at the same time. So I had to drop a couple of things and just focus, where I focused on obviously my son that was going to be born that year. And then, going through with personal training and wanted to do that. So long story short, left the catering company, decided to go personal training. And then, I learned firsthand what it's like to be a parent to your firstborn, where weight gain is real. Like I gained 30 pounds leading up to and after he was born. And I had to strip all that off, and I wanted to compete in powerlifting actually like the next year. So that was a ride. And then after that, I'd always kind of help people lose fat. I help people build muscle and strength too, if they wanted that. It wasn't until 2020, early last year. Yeah. Where I was like, you know what? We're about to have our second born. Like, why am I not shifting gears to help parents? Like I've been there, done that. I'm going to do it again. And with the help of some coaches of mine, they're like, you need to shift gears a little bit, shift the brand a little bit. And that's why the brand looks different than when we first met. Yeah. And it's honestly been amazing. I think it's been incredibly helpful for business because I can help a specific population. Through my experiences, I think a lot of people who come to me have seen what I've been through as well. Yeah. And they recognize that I am a dad. We have a family. We're busy. We actually have a puppy too, which just adds a whole nother level of things on top of everything else. So that's how I got into coaching. That's how I got into coaching parents. And I'm loving every minute of it for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's been cool to see you transitioning, right? Because we met in, I don't know, like 3-4 years ago. Time just flies. So it's been cool to see you really find that niche. And I feel like we also coach our clients with our own experience and the growth that we have, right? So it was the same with me, starting with like very specific like training programs and like athletes. But as I started to learn and apply on myself all the nutrition knowledge and like going through eating disorders, like, cool, like I've experienced it. I have the knowledge. I can use that to help women who go through the same thing. Same with mindset. And so, yeah, it's cool to have, yes, the knowledge and the books and the certifications, but when you also have the experience, this is when being relatable to your clients and vice versa is very powerful to help your clients. So it's been cool to see you that transition. Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah. You mentioned something that you gained like 30 pounds, right? When Amy was pregnant. What were the biggest triggers or situation? Was it the stress? Was it just habits that went down the drain? Why do you think that we tend to gain weight whenever there's a big change in our lives or whenever,
That's a good question. So
because I mean, you weren't pregnant yourself, right? So
no, it was not. Yeah. You know what I mean?
For the women to gain weight, I mean, it's healthy, but for the men, or, you know, when we go through other things that don't really relate, you know, to a pregnancy.
Yeah.
Something
we see. That's an interesting question. Yeah. So, I mean, the scapegoat answer would be to blame my wife, but I'm not going to do that, obviously, because it's not her fault. She didn't force me to eat. But, you know, I think it's twofold. So, you know, leading up to his birth, obviously, is our first time being pregnant. You know, my wife did have cravings for things, and I love food. Like, I always tell people, like, I'm a fat kid at heart. Like, I love food. So, you know, our regular meal for a while there during pregnancy was burritos and then Dairy Queen for dessert. And there was no calorie tracking. There was no, we were just eating. Yeah. And then, so it was that paired with anyone who's been through a newborn stage before, you are a zombie. There's next to no training for the most part. You're not sleeping. And then when you're not sleeping, your hunger hormones are all out of whack. So we had a ton of like family support, and like people brought us food, but at the same time, nothing would really, like, I'd always be hungry because I'm not sleeping, but then I'm also not training. And it'd be funny because I'd be working at the gym trying to train clients. And in between, I'm like, I could either go home and sleep or I can get a workout in. 9 times out of 10, I'd go home and take a nap because
the priorities are changing.
Yeah. Like you're just tired. So I think it was a combination of both, like leading, like the last 2 months of the pregnancy plus the first 3 months of his life. It's just, any parent's it's just like, I call it a nightmare. Like I love my son to death, but it's super stressful because, again, if you're not sleeping, you're not eating well, you're not training normally, you're not really doing things you'd normally do. And it's kind of just like a waiting game to just wait the storm out until they start sleeping through the night. Then you kind of feel a little bit more normal again. Then your hormones regulate for your eating. But it was interesting because then, like I said, I signed up for a powerlifting competition knowing I was 30 pounds overweight, like over my target, because I would have had to lift in a heavier weight class, which, not that I'm like an elite powerlifter anyways, but I didn't want to get completely embarrassed with like the 240 pounders. So I cut to 205. I finished third out of 3, but it's pretty good. But yeah, definitely the stresses of everything. And then just to completely shift the routine was the big thing for us.
So do you think that having that specific goal was key and like a good trigger for you to kind of step back on track? That plus, you know, more sleeping and all that, or
100%. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I probably would have attempted to lose fat regardless, because I didn't feel good about myself anyway. But I think having that set date, like I had to weigh 205 by, I think it was August 15th or something like that. And I barely cracked weight. Like I was trying to peak my lifts and drop 30 pounds over the course of February to August in a year.
Wow.
It was, and I got hurt. Like I got hurt in training. Like it was a lot. And that's why I haven't competed since 2017. I probably won't compete again, but I think having that target helped. And then getting back to normal routine definitely made a huge difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. I did a powerlifting competition too in 2017. Yeah, I didn't know we had that in common.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I did one, and the same, like I signed up, I think like a month before, and it wasn't planned. I wanted to compete mid 2017, but I was going to travel. I was launching my business or something like that. And then when I saw like the dates for the competition, I was like, oh my God, like the only one that's close-ish to my house that I'm actually available that weekend was like 4 weeks out. And I had been trailing really hard, but I had the same dilemma. I was like, oh my God, I was like in the middle of like the weight category. I was like, oh my God, do I do a cut or like, and with my eating disorder, like background, I was like, no. If I go into like, I'm going to get hurt, I'm going to start binging. So I just decided to stay in the higher weight category, but it was fun. I don't think I will do it again, but who knows, right? But yeah. Oh, that's cool that you did that.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it the same kind of like procedure when you had baby number 2 with like the gaining weight and then the sleep going to shit and
I mean, the sleep going to shit definitely for the most part, although this time was a little bit different. So our second born just in a year, like almost 2 weeks ago. So basically, I mean, it's been COVID times.
Yeah. So
there was that. So there wasn't really going out. Gyms were closed. So I was training at home, whatever I could do. But at the same time, we're also planning a move. So from December 3rd, like I said, our family does things in spurts. For December 3rd, my wife gave birth. And then February 20th, we moved.
Wow.
So that span of time was essentially just, no sleeping.
Survival.
I was training clients online and not in person, thankfully. Survival and trying to maintain my eating habits. But at the same time, I'm notoriously bad at being mindful of food in December because of chocolate. And again, if you combine no sleep with a tables full of chocolate at your house, plus my grandmother's cooking, because we used to live across the street from her, it's another kind of whirlwind. So it was okay. I mean, packing and moving kept me super active. Whereas like in March, April, May, I was actually in really great shape. Like I wasn't as bad off as I was the first time around. And my wife is an absolute rock star. Like this time she worked out through the whole pregnancy. Wow. She didn't gain a lot of weight. We were very mindful with calories for the both of us. So for us both, we went into it with completely different mindsets because we were like, we didn't feel good after the first one. So we wanted to shift that. That was her most consistent stretch of workouts she's ever had in her entire life, from like when she, after the first trimester onward until she gave birth. It was amazing to see. Yeah.
Great. It's funny how much other people, especially like husbands and wives and kids, influence our own health and habits. Do you see that a lot with your clients? Like the woman who wants to lose weight or like start being more mindful of her nutrition, but there's also like but my husband will have snack on the couch at night. Like, how do you tackle that? Do you see that a lot?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple scenarios. So oftentimes I always have to remind, if the client's a woman, I always have to remind her never to compare herself to her counterpart. It's not fair, whether he's on a weight loss journey as well or not. You know, the bodies are different. Men typically lose fat a lot faster. Typically we're holding more as well. But also I try to remind them that, you know, even if he's having his snacks and you want some, but maybe you don't have calories for it, or you're trying to change that nighttime snacking habit, it literally becomes like you have to give yourself permission to say no to things. I think that's one of the hardest things we have, where, you know, nightly here we sit and watch TV. And if one of us gets up to grab some chocolate or whatever it is, you know, typically the other person will partake. Yeah. So it does take a little bit of extra discipline when one of the two partners isn't on the same journey. Not to say it's impossible, but it does make it has a layer of difficulty with it. Whereas I have a few couples who are doing it together, it's much easier for them. They're both on the same page. Snacking is the same. Although again, you know, the female counterparts tend to compare their progress to their males, which again, I always remind people it's not fair at all. And we're all on our own journeys here. And just because someone else is losing more than you at a faster rate doesn't mean you're not doing great in your own journeys. That's a constant reminder as well.
You mentioned something there, permission. You know, sometimes we see permission as like, oh, I give myself permission to have that extra snack or to have that chocolate. But the way you brought it up is like, no, I'm giving myself permission to say no. Right. Because like, again, it's the habit. Every night we snack together, and we're talking about night snacking because that's so common. Right. Or like giving myself permission to say no, because I don't want to make like the other person feel bad, or like, oh, if they just eat by themselves, I'll just be like a company, you know, snack eater with them. So I like the way you bring the permission aspect of it, because for men too, but I mean, especially for women, I think sometimes there's the guilt, there's the people pleaser, there's the not saying no, you know, so.
100%. Yeah. And that's where I think they go wrong. Like they feel like they're obligated to, or if they don't say no, and then there's this like willpower battle with themselves, like all night or multiple nights in a row, where it just makes the journey that much harder. So depending on the person, and sometimes it's you give yourself permission to have that snack, or you give yourself permission to be like, you know what, I don't want it. I don't need it. It's fine. He can have his. I'm good. Sometimes you need a little bit of both. Yeah.
And I think asking yourself the right questions in that moment, like, am I saying yes because I want to have that snack and I'll feel good, I won't feel guilty and actually want it in a moderate portion? Or am I saying yes because I feel bad or I feel guilty or like I'm not used to saying yes? So in the moment, that takes a lot of awareness, but asking yourself a good question, I think, is the best way to see if you're aligned with your choice. And you're not doing it just because your husband or your wife is doing it, right?
Yeah, just because it's true.
Yeah. What about kids? Like, how have you seen your clients, you know, meal plans and habits be influenced, good or bad, by the kids, like the lunches and the picking up, you know, like kids' plate and the leftovers? Or one thing that I see is like, oh, I have to make myself a different meals than my kids, right? Or my kids don't eat this, so I have to cook 3-4 different dinners.
You touched on a lot of good topics there. So the first one, just because it's quicker to go in. Yeah. So one of my clients brought this to my attention, and I've been a father for 5 years and I had no idea this was a thing. Have you ever heard of the dad tax?
No,
I never heard of this. The dad tax is essentially when you clean up everyone's leftovers.
Oh, dad tax.
Yeah. I have in the past have been notorious for that. Yeah. So it's funny when he brought that up to me, but the dad tax is definitely a thing where you're finishing off your kids' plates, you're taking nibbles when you're cooking. It's all these little things that go unnoticed that add up really quickly. The meals thing, I mean, so I've always been on the side of, you know what, the parents are the bosses of the household. The kids should not be dictating what's being fed, what's being cooked, what they're eating. They can have a say, they can express, and depending on what age they are, you can incorporate them. But I don't think your kids should dictate what the family's meals are going to be. I think it's important to set kind of a structure and a routine, because kids thrive off of routine, where certain nights of the week, and this can change multiple months, they know that, you know, here at home, Wednesday night is egg night. My son knows it. He loves eggs, his favorite food. Monday and Tuesday, he eats kind of what we're eating. He's not the biggest fan of it, but he needs his potatoes. He needs his broccoli. He needs whatever vegetables and proteins we're having, because it's important for him, right? If it was up to him, he would have asked us for nachos like 4 out of 7 days of the week. It's not happening. You know what I mean? So I know I do have some clients who feel like they have to cook different meals for the family. And I can't tell them like how to do it with their kids necessarily, because I'm not telling them how to parent. Like and kids have allergies and they're picky eaters. My kids are, especially my 5-year-old's a little picky as well. But at the end of the day, I think it depends on what your goals are. Like if you want to make the journey easier for yourself, you cook the meal, everyone eats the meal, or they don't. Especially the partner can find an alternative. Like it happens a lot with moms, and I don't want to say like I'm ragging on them, but moms always put everyone else before them. Always. And it's common. I'm not a mom, I'm a dad, so I can't relate necessarily. I do know sacrificing sometimes for your kids, but you know, I'd argue like most, any mothers listening to this, if you have a husband or partner or whatever it is, he's very capable of cooking as well. You don't have to do it all the time, right? You deserve to be cooked for. You deserve to eat the foods that you want, not just what your family's ordering from you all the time. Putting yourself on the front burner is extremely necessary, both for your health and fitness, but also your mental health, because it's exhausting. Like I've heard clients tell me she's doing laundry like 4 nights a week, and she's cleaning out after the kids, and she's cooking. And I'm like, holy, so when do you have time for yourself? Right? We get stuck in this mindset of like everyone else before me. And then the health takes, hit for years in the compounds. And then all of a sudden 5-10 years have gone by and you feel completely terrible. Right. So we're trying to help people undo that. But like it's mostly with moms for sure. I've yet to see this happen with dads. Moms are the mama bears. They sacrifice, they do whatever they need to do for everyone else but themselves. Like they'll pack the kids' lunches, but they won't pack their own. So we're trying to kind of undo that programming to help them along and just really set the standard for the family on what's being done moving forward to make sure everyone's healthy and feeling good.
Wow. You touched on so many great points there, and I totally agree. And it's like, losing weight, improving your health, changing your habits. It can be pretty simple, but it doesn't mean it's easy, right? Especially if you have habits that have been there for years, if you have subconscious programming, limiting beliefs, other people to care for and like keep in mind while you're going through your journey. So if on top of that, you're adding the extra stress, I'm going to have to cook a different dinner every night for myself. I'm already overwhelmed with handling all the food in this house. I'm going to have to do X, Y, Z on top of like everything else I'm doing, then forget about it. I'm not jumping on this hell train. I'm just going to stay where I'm at. And that's when, unfortunately, women get stuck. And like you said, 5 years go down, 10 years go down the drain. And you're like, I'm overweight. I'm tired. I have a low self-esteem, negative mindset. And sometimes they kind of hit rock bottom before they're like, maybe taking care of myself first. What a concept. Could help me. Yeah, it is tough. Yeah. There's a lot of layers to that, like the programming and like in society and like like you said, the mama bear and like feeling guilty. And I mean, it's from years, generations ago. So
yeah.
What are some couple first tips or first steps that you help moms kind of like unlearn all this responsibility or?
Yeah. So first, I mean, it starts in the mind. It definitely starts with like,
Amen.
As cheesy as it sounds, like you can't fill from an empty cup, right? So if you prioritize your health and fitness, and that doesn't mean that you're not taking care of anything else. That just means you're taking, maybe it's 3 times a week for 30 minutes. You're taking time to work out or go for walks. Yeah. If you start taking that priority for yourself a little bit more, you're going to feel better about yourself overall, hands down, whether you notice weight loss right away or not. you're going to feel better. When you set a priority for yourself, you set up, goals and you follow through with them, you develop this trust and you set these small wins and you start feeling good. You're like, yeah, I went for walks. And then all of a sudden it translates into eating a little healthier, choosing more vegetables, maybe more lean proteins. And that kind of goes into, maybe I'm going to get some more sleep. And all these kind of parts of this health journey start to puzzle together, whether you know it or not. When this starts happening, you perform even better as a parent, right? You're not as sluggish. You have more energy. You can play with your kids. You have less aches and pains, all from just starting to put yourself just that little bit forward instead of always thinking of everyone else. And then by the end of the day, you're too tired to do anything for yourself, right? That's the biggest thing. The number one tip I give for moms is take an honest look at your schedule and find or make time for yourself. 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I've had a client where I had to set her up with 15-minute workouts for 5 days a week because that's all she could do in that span of a time. Both kids were home, online learning, all that stuff. She did what she could until gyms opened up, and now she's more in a regular routine. Right. But I think it's important first to look at the calendar and just audit and be really brutally honest. Like, where are you spending your time? Do you need to do laundry 4 days a week? No, nobody does. I'm sure your kids will be fine. I'm sure your husband will be fine. You'll be fine, right? These little things that, let it pile up a little bit. Nobody can see the blurred background right now, but the laundry's back there. Fine. Yes. It's okay. We're going to be okay. So finding time in your calendar is number one, because if it's not in your calendar, it's not going to happen. I think that goes for anything. Like same way you'd never miss a doctor's appointment because they're so hard to get and reschedule. Your workouts and your activity and your time, the true self-care needs to be scheduled as well.
Yeah. And the true self-care, because, binging and watching Netflix might be quote unquote time for yourself, but is it really going to help you refuel your tank and give you energy and sleep better? And I think that's very important, especially like since the pandemic, just like, yes, recovery, yes, taking care of yourself, yes, self-care, which is such like a mainstream word right now, but making sure that what you're deciding to do in your me time actually helps you and refuels you and bring you into this more positive. It's not a vicious circle anymore. It's a positive circle of like, more energy. I'm moving a little more, eating better. Like you said, I think that's key right there. I have my clients schedule their me time and track their me time in the calendar like they would do that with a workout.
Perfect.
Right? So like just cardio, check twice a week, weights at home, whatever. But there's also that little box with like me time. And it can be 10 minutes, right? And again, I think that's a myth. Sometimes when moms are like, or women or anybody really like, I need to take care of myself. I don't have time to go to the spa every weekend. I don't have time to like take 4 days off. And that's awesome if you do have time. But realistically, especially with kids, like the compound effect of 10, 20, 30 minutes here and there at the end of the week and being consistent with that week to week, obviously it's going to bring the results in.
It helps. Can I just interject with a point there too?
Absolutely.
If watching TV is a way, because I've had this come up too, is a way for you to like connect with your spouse, because that's like the only time you guys get. I understand that, but at the same time, you're not going to benefit physically, mentally from staying up super late watching TV. Like it's never going to provide a better result than going to bed early. So if you need to connect with your spouse, I get that. Try to find other times of the week if you can. Take a day off. Disconnect from social media.
Yes.
Have work off. Like for me, and Claudia, I'm sure like I didn't want to work a 9 to 5 because I don't want to work all the time, but now I work 24/7. That's like one of the funniest things I heard. But like this past year, I'm like, I've taken Sundays off almost every Sunday. And it's been the biggest game changer because it's easy to get wrapped up in everything else all the time. And then you're never really recovered. You're mentally definitely never recovered. Physically, from the work week, from the stress of family life, workouts, whatever it is, take some time. Like you said, it doesn't have to be 4 days. It doesn't have to be a spa. It can be, I know a workout can be a form of self-care. So can a walk. A nice, like every morning, as much as my puppy just gives me grief all the time, every morning we go for walks, like 15 minutes. It's silence, like 6 o'clock in the morning. It's great. It's a great way to start the day without distractions. It's quiet. Like I said, I take that as kind of a form of self-care, a form of me time. Me time is me waking up before the family does so I can read, journal, walk with silence. Because once the kids are up from 7:30 onward, forget about it, right? Until they go to school or whatever. But yeah, like you said, that little bit of self-care, you add it up over time, just like anything else, that compound interest is humongous.
Yeah. And You mentioned something like mental capacity and mental fatigue and like recovering mentally as well. And I think we underestimate that because we're so used to the notifications, the dings and the likes and TV and the radio. Like there's just so many things coming at us. So the silence and emptying our brains and just not being the wife, the teacher, the entrepreneur, the mom, and just being you. Like nobody does that anymore.
It's not easy
though.
It's not. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's necessary. Like I don't know about you, my notifications are not on my phone anymore.
No,
I can't.
Yeah, especially with the work we do online. Like our business is online, right? Like we get messages from all these apps, and I'm sure that taking your Sunday off, and that's something I've been working a lot in 2021, just like unplugging from my phone. And even if my notifications are not on, like it's easy for me to just, in between tasks, let me go check if a client needs something, right? Yeah. If somebody has a question on my post that I posted this morning. But again, we underestimate how taxing it is for your brain and your spirit and your mental health until we're like, oh my God, everybody leave me alone. I can't handle anybody anymore, And
it's true.
And like I said, I'm sure taking the Sundays off and for myself, taking more time off and unplugging, you realize like, the world keeps turning and it's not the end of the world if I don't show up every single minute for everybody else. So going back to the moms, taking 10 minutes every day and realizing, I took 10 minutes for myself. And once you look at that, everything got done. My kids still ate. My husband still loves me. The floors are not, a mess. That just builds confidence and remove a bit of the guilt.
100%, because there is a lot of mom guilt. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. Anything else that you see moms or parents struggle when it comes to like nutrition, training, time management, energy, or some of the struggles you went through in your own journey?
There's been a lot. I mean, since we're talking about energy, I think one other thing big time with the phone is nothing important is happening, before 8 a.m. And after 9 or 10 p.m. Like you don't need to be dialed into anything on your phone at those times.
Yeah.
I sleep with my phone outside of the bedroom.
Same.
It's not necessary to be in there. I had a call with clients a couple weeks ago. We talked about this, like, you're not missing much. You don't need your phone next to you in the morning. You don't need to look at it first thing. Give yourself a time to wake up, to actually wake up, not get sucked into reactive mode and then your cortisol spikes already right in the beginning of the day. So that's not a fun way to start the day. Imagine this. You get a really crappy email 5 minutes before you go to bed. How do you think you're going to sleep that night?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You do not need to check any of that stuff close to bedtime when you wake up. You get to decide how you set the tone for each day. And when you can do that, and I promise anyone listening to this, you'll start your day and you'll feel better. You'll have more energy. I promise you, you won't feel as like, oh my God, like dragging your feet and all stressed out because you took that little bit of time where you didn't plug into anything. It's so nice to have a nice quiet coffee, just relax. Journaling has also been super helpful, but in terms of energy management, I think that's a big one because moms are thinking of everyone all the time.
Yeah.
Even when they're working, right? They're always thinking of what else is going on. So it's important to again, have that wake up time and bedtime to be your time of not worrying about what's happening on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, news,
it can
Netflix. Wait. It's all going to be there in the next day. If you want to check it the next day or hours from there, it's not a big deal. That's probably one of the biggest things in terms of like nutrition. One of the biggest things is it's always food guilt. It's always like, these foods are bad. I can't have them. Labels. I shouldn't have them. They label it. Yeah. And then like, I have a client whose birthday's coming up and she's worried about, having cake and, I always do so well. And then something comes up and then I have these foods and I feel bad after. And I'm like, look, it's your birthday. So calories don't count on our birthdays, just for everyone out there. But the second thing, like if you break it down, like what is a piece of cake? Like, what is really so bad about it? Right. There's fat, there's added sugars. Fine. There's sugar in your coffee, potentially. There's sugars in carbohydrates and fruits. There's fat in other foods we're eating. Like there's all these other things and some are healthier than others for sure.
Yeah.
But the fact that you had a slice of cake on your actual birthday, especially, is never going to do anything negative to your entire journey.
Yeah.
Right. And I just had a group call last night with clients talking about the next 2 weeks of the year. The last 2 weeks of the year, it's usually very calorie heavy, lots of family get-togethers, whatever's going on.
Alcohol, dessert.
Yeah, exactly. Like all the best stuff, right? So it's easy to go into it with one of two mindsets. One is like, well, I'm just going to eat whatever I want, drink whatever I want, and not worry about it until the new year, which is, I don't recommend doing that. Or the other one is, trying your best to be mindful and then still having guilt over those foods. So you don't have to have that, right? If you are, let's say 80% consistent for 50 out of 52 weeks of the year, and for 2 weeks of the year, maybe you overindulge for 2 weeks straight, you're probably not going to overindulge that much for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine. Like 2022, you'll still look like a friggin' rock star this time next year if you're 80% consistent for the rest of the year from this point onward. So for most people, like, remove the food labels. You're not a bad person for having cake or alcohol or some extra appetizers or a second plate of dessert. This time of year, it's hard to say no to food. I get that. I'm the same way. The same token, I see nothing as good or bad. It's more helpful, less helpful.
I like
at the end of the day, it's just what decision do you want to make, I think.
Yeah. I think perspective is huge, especially when it comes to birthdays and the holidays and Valentine's Day. As humans, we tend to focus on like what's wrong or what's bad or like the negative, even if that represents 1, 2, or even 5%, right? Even now, like this will come out after the holidays, but even for Valentine's Day or Easter or whatever, I tell my clients like, okay, for the next month, let's say the month of December, like how many meals or snacks do you have in total? Right? Like there's a lot. And you focus on that one party or that one brunch. Are you going to be eating a little more where you have control over everything else throughout your month? Like perspective, it's not that big of a deal. And I feel like the problem is never the piece of cake or never the glass of wine. Like that's not going to ruin your progress. Like you said, especially if you're consistent 80% of the time. The problem is the guilt, the shame, the frustration, the giving up, the going all in and binging for a week, the skipping the workouts, like all the thoughts and the behaviors before, during, and after that piece of cake or that glass of wine, that does the damage, or that slows down your progress, not the actual meal or snack itself.
100%. And it comes from a lot of things. And I think one of the biggest things is all or nothing kind of mindset. Yes. Like either you have to be all in or you're not in. And I've said this so many times this year, and I'll keep saying it, like a long-term fitness journey to be successful. And what I call successful is just, getting to a body composition that you are happy with. Your energy is good. You feel good. You feel pretty healthy. To be successful in that, it's boring. Yeah. It's supposed to be boring. Yeah. This is not an exciting thing to eat the same things repeatedly. Even if you like the foods, it's not fun all the time, no matter what your favorite influencer might say. So once you can embrace that, you're going to have good days. You're going to have not so good days, but you keep showing up. You're going to be absolutely fine. There's no such thing as all or nothing. When you go into something, and this is anything really, with an all or nothing mindset, you're going to end up with nothing. Yeah. 9 times, right? Pretty much. Like you go into, okay, I'm going to cut it out, all the carbs. I'm not going to drink alcohol, all the stuff. And then 2 weeks go by and you're like, well, I can't do this anymore. And then you stop and you revert back to your old habits again. So instead it's trying to learn some new things and stop making yourself feel guilty. Stop shaming yourself for food choices. Stop thinking that it's an all or nothing thing. It's really not. It's, can I be pretty good today? Can I show up for myself in a healthy manner with some healthy habits? Maybe there's 5 things you want to check off and you get 2 of the 5. Hey, 2's better than 0. Yeah. Right. So you're still working towards it. But I think the all or nothing thing is the biggest hurtful way of approaching it, I guess. Yeah. Where most, it doesn't work. Yeah. No, it never does. And I find moms have that mentality for some reason when they're already kind of overwhelmed. They're like, okay, I'm ready to be all in now. And I'm like, let's hold on a second. Let's just do a little bit first and just see where we go from there. Yeah. Yeah. Be all in with your 80-20 or all in with your consistency. If you like that mindset or that approach, but it never lasts. And that's a crazy thing. Again, we get so sucked into like you said, the influencers and the marketing and social media that consciously these women probably know that the last 20 fad diets that they tried then work in the long run. But a lot of people are looking for like the reset, especially after the holidays or after a big meal or Monday mornings, right? And the comment that I get sometimes is, well, it's going to take forever. I want to lose the weight faster. This is taking too long, because again, we see in magazines and on social media, lose 20 pounds in 3 days. Yeah. So whenever they lose 5 pounds in a month, they're like, oh,
this is awful. I'm not making any progress. It should be faster. I was like, well, all the yo-yo dieting that you've been doing took you like 20 years and you're still at the same spot. So even if it takes 2 years for you to lose the 20 pounds, but lose it for good because you took a different approach, we're still gaining time here.
That's it. And that's the hardest thing is those expectations. Like I did have a conversation with someone who said, no, I only lost 5 pounds this month. And I'm like, congratulations. You lost 5 pounds this month. You've done amazing work.
Yeah.
Oh, but I thought I'd lose more. And I said, look, would you tell your friend the same thing? Like if your friend said, I only lost 5 pounds this month, would you berate them for only losing, or would you tell them, no, you did an amazing job. Like just keep going. Right. And I'm guilty. Like we're so hard on ourselves and have these grand expectations. Like we think that we're above everything else and we should be doing like all this stuff. And whether it's social media or whether it's our own internal struggles, a pound a week for a year is 52 pounds.
Yeah.
Not that it'll ever be that consistent for that long, but like you said, if you've struggled 10, 20 years on different fad diets, something needs to change. Because if you lost 20 pounds 10 years ago and you couldn't keep it off, it didn't work. That's the biggest thing. I did this diet, it worked back then, and now I gained the weight. Okay, the diet didn't work. Like, it's just flat out. And that doesn't mean to be rude. If it worked, you'd be able to maintain it. That's the biggest thing. Because if I can lose 20 pounds next month, but I don't want to. That sounds miserable. Exactly. Right? It doesn't sound, why would I want to do that? I saw someone said she drank lemon water for 30 days straight and lost 20 pounds. I'm like, why? I read the comment and in my head, I'm like, that sounds miserable. Like that you didn't eat regular food much for a month. Like that doesn't sound A, healthy, B, definitely not sustainable, and C, you lost a ton of water weight. Most of it wasn't fat weight either, but I mean, people have to learn their own lessons too. I'm not going to be that guy, but it's true. The expectations sometimes are just, they're out of hand.
Yeah. Especially with like dieting or following a meal plan. I had Carrie on the podcast a few months ago and she said, you have to diet like you're going to be eating when you're off dieting, meaning that your habits should not change all that much. So if you're just drinking water for 30 days, lime water, are you going to do that for the rest of your life? No. But if you're eating whole foods, being consistent, 80-20, when you're in your fat loss phase, nothing much has to change when you're in maintenance mode. You might be, indulging like a treat here and there with a little more often, or, I'm having a bigger portion of something, but the core habits should not change because you want it to be sustainable to maintain the results. So I like the way she approached that. And that reminded me of that. That's
great. Yeah. That's a good way of thinking of it. Cause it's true. Like anyone who's tried a meal plan before, a strict one, what did you do when the meal plan was over? You just went back to your normal way of eating. You went back to all the foods you weren't allowed to have, right? Because you missed them for 6 weeks or whatever it was. So sustainability is absolutely key.
Yes. So we're going to wish everybody a consistent, healthy habits kind of year. How can we connect with you on social, or if there's any moms or parents who want to work with you?
Definitely. So Strong Jon Fitness on Instagram is probably the fastest and easiest way to get in contact with me. John is no H in John. I'm one of the weird ones. If you want to work with me, I'll send Claudia the link. You can put in the show notes if that's cool with you.
Yeah, for sure.
Also the website, strongjonfitness.com. I got the blog, podcast, testimonials, contact page, all that fun stuff on the website as well. But if you have a question, Instagram DM is probably the fastest way to do it.
Perfect. Yes. I'll add that in the show notes. Anything else for us or listeners today that we didn't touch on? We talked about morning routine, consistency, flexible way of dieting and all that, priorities with like the scheduling, the me time. There's a lot of, and again, it's stuff that we know, or that we're aware, but if you know, but you're not doing it, you don't really know. Right. So
sometimes you have to hear it 10 times to just really hit,
20 times. Yeah. So I'm hoping that this conversation will be the bridge between being aware of it and then stepping into doing it. So that way you actually know it.
100%. Yeah. If I had to give like a golden nugget just to finish off, is just keep showing up for yourself. Like that's literally it. If you show up in one way or another every single day, you're going to see results long-term. If stop being so hard on yourself, stop giving up when it gets a little bit difficult, do some bare minimums as much as you can, and just keep plugging away. Because when you're pushing yourself a little bit, just that little bit, when it's hard, when life is less stressful, it's such a breeze. It's so much easier when you have those core habits that we've talked about. You just show up during that little bit of times when times are a little bit challenging. keep doing the bare minimums. You'll be fine long term.
Yeah. For example, like when you have a newborn.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. I finish every conversation with the same question for all of my guests. So I'm curious, do you have a favorite quote, and what is it and why?
I have one. I forget what it is now. I had it written down. That's a good one. You put me on the spot with that one.
Yeah, that's why I love this question. It always puts people on the spot.
The Wayne Gretzky quote keeps coming to my head for some reason. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. That's just because of The Office. No, I don't really have any like real quotes. One of the biggest things I've learned over the past 2 years is really like we can't control everything that happens to us, but we control how we react to it. Like that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned. That's some form of stoicism, whether it was Ryan Holiday himself or Seneca or someone else. But that's the biggest thing, because a lot of stuff has happened. A lot. But we control our reactions to everything, whether you decide to watch the news, whether you decide to dig into that sort of thing, or whether you decide to, you know what, take a step back, breathe, count to 10. So you know what, I can control X, Y, Z, and this is where I'm going to focus my energy, because it's so easy to get wrapped up in everything else where we forget about ourselves. So control what you can and focus on that, and I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, I think focusing on that, we realize that we have so much more control than we think we do. So great ending there. Awesome. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it.
Thanks again for having me.
J'espère que cette conversation awesome t'a inspiré. Et d'ailleurs, I would love to hear back from you. Rejoins Karmakin sur les réseaux sociaux and tag me in a post pour partager ce que tu retiens de cet épisode. Je serais vraiment grateful aussi si tu pouvais me laisser un rating and review pour le podcast. Ça me permet d'avoir un impact positif sur plus de gens comme toi. Merci beaucoup d'avoir été à l'écoute, and until next time, je te souhaite une journée awesome.